guys, it's Emily, and today I'm here to bring you another recent reads video. As always, I got 3 books to talk about, so let's just get right into it. The first book that I finished recently was The Radium Girls, the dark story of America's shining women by Kate Moore. And this follows 2 sets of dial painters during World War I, and then shortly after. The first group of dial painters worked at a factory in Orange, New Jersey, and then the second group worked at a factory in Ottawa, Illinois. And these girls, at the time that they were painting dials, radium was seen as this really amazing element, substance that would improve your health if you digested it, or if you used it in your food or whatever. And so the girls were painting dials for first the war effort, and then just regular watches later on. And they would paint them by dipping their brush in the paint, the radium paint, and then sticking it in their mouth to moisten the tip and then paint the numbers on the clock. So they were ingesting a little bit of radium each time they did this. And so, at first they just thought, oh cool, it's gonna help me improve my health, and nobody thought anything about it. But then several of the girls in the factory started getting sick, and then it became this widespread problem of workers at the dial factory getting sick. But there's the symptoms of their illnesses were different. Some girls were losing their teeth and their jawbones. Some girls were having hip problems. Some girls were getting really bad tumors on their necks. So it was like nobody really knew what was going on, and nobody understood that all of these afflictions were caused by the same thing. They were caused by the constant ingestion of radium. And at first, the dial painting factories were refusing to take responsibility because, again, radium was seen to be this very healthy thing, and also because the symptoms were all different in all of the women. But eventually, over time, the laws were changed to make radium poisoning a suable offense under the Fair Labor Act, and then eventually the women did get justice, although it still continued for a long time, even after the first girls began getting their compensation for their illnesses and their injuries. So yeah, this is a really good book. This is one of those nonfiction books that I would recommend if you're not a big nonfiction reader, because it reads just like a fiction novel. There's a lot of short chapters, and there's cliffhangers, and there's so it's a very, you can read several chapters in one sitting and it wouldn't even bother you. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. It is kind of sad. There is, it's very gruesome to read about, because they talk about people's jawbones coming out and these terrible tumors, and there's pictures in here of, these are the women, but then there's also pictures of the tumors and other things like that. So just a fair warning that this is kind of hard to read, but also a very good read and one I would recommend. I then read my book club book for the month, and that was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And this is the first in, I think it's going to be a trilogy. The second one's coming out in December. This follows Zelie, and she is a magician, a magi, as they call them in this world, but the magi have been sort of driven underground, and nobody really knows how to use their magical powers anymore. But you can tell that they're magi because they all have a streak of white in their hair. And so Zelie is learning how to fight against the corrupt government, which is led by King Saran, and she is inadvertently brought into a quest where she runs into this person in the marketplace, and the person is a Princess Amari, who's fled her father in the corrupt government, and she has this magical artifact that she's stolen, and they are on a quest along with Zelie's brother Zane to restore magic to the kingdom, and they with this sacred object that Amari has found. And following them is Amari's brother, Prince Amon. And Prince Amon actually is a magi as well, but he refuses to admit it to anybody, and he covers up the white in his hair with hair dye. And so we see the quest, and we see Amon following them, and then we also see sort of Amon coming to grips with his magical powers, and he and Zelie begin to have a relationship, and Amari and Zane begin to have a relationship. So it's a very interesting story. This is a YA book and a fantasy book, so it's not something I would typically read, but because it was a book club book, I picked it up. I did really enjoy it. I don't know if I'm particularly interested in reading the sequel anytime soon, but if we read it for book club next year, which it sounds like we might, considering some of the other ladies' reaction to this book, I would definitely pick it up. I will say the thing that was really interesting about this book is two things. First, the enemy in this book is Amon, the prince, but he's not like it's not a black and white story where, evil is bad, blah, 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 and then good is completely innocent. It's both of the characters, Zelie representing good and Iman representing bad, see both sides of the equation. They can understand how the other one thinks, especially Zelie. Towards the middle of the book, she begins to have doubts about the goodness, like whether they should really let magic come back to the kingdom, because she witnesses some things where magic is very harmful to people, and she worries about it, being corrupted to negative purposes, which is why it went out of the kingdom in the first place. So I really enjoyed that. And then also at the end of the story, in her author's note, Tomi Adeyemi mentions that she wrote this as sort of an allegory for the African American experience in the USA, particularly the shooting of innocent black men by police officers. Unwarrantedly, they didn't have a gun, or they weren't doing anything, they were just shot in the back or whatever, like Michael Brown and all the other victims. So anyway, but she just mentions that this is meant to be an allegory, and I thought that was really interesting. And yeah, so I enjoyed this. I would recommend this if you're interested in YA, or if you really like fantasy, or if somehow you haven't read this, because I feel like a lot of people, both on BookTube and in real life, have already read this. But yeah, I'm glad we got to pick this up for book club. The final book I want to mention in this recent reads video is The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. This is a classic book. It was written in 1920, and it won the Pulitzer Prize in 1921 for best fiction. And this is the story of Newland Archer, who is a very wealthy young man living in 1880s New York or so, and he's very much into the in crowd and the rules of propriety, and he has a job as a lawyer, but it's only because rich men are expected to have a profession in this time, and so he doesn't work super hard. He just works enough to appear to be a good lawyer, and then he spends a lot of his time hanging out with his friends and doing fun things. And he's engaged to a young woman named May Whelan, and May is a very innocent, naive young girl, and Newland is looking forward to sort of imprinting her with all of his beliefs and his ways of thinking about the world. And so he's very much looking forward to their wedding. And May has decided to postpone their wedding for a year due to the request of her parents and the notions of propriety. And so while they are preparing to get married, May's cousin, Countess Olenska, has come back from Europe, and her husband was very, well, we don't really know, but the implication is that he was sort of mean to her and abusive. And there's a scandal because she left him, so that's a scandal, but she also apparently left him in the company of another man. And so there's this implication that she's, cheated on him. And even though he cheated on her as well, there's the double standard aspect of society. So she comes to New York, and she's living with May's grandmother, and Newland is also a cousin of the family somehow in a vague way. So it's about the scandal that Countess Olenska brings. And then over the course of the novel, Newland and Countess Olenska fall in love, and the Countess wants to get a divorce, and at first Newland is sent to talk her out of it and to tell her, it's not possible, there's no way you would get any money, and the family's not going to support you if you're divorced. So he basically talks her out of it. But then over the course of the novel, when he starts falling in love with her, he decides that he would like her to get a divorce so he can marry her. And then, of course, this affects his relationship with May. He starts thinking that a lot of the stuff he does with May is sort of superficial and not very important, and a lot of the rules are not very important. And so it's a satire of society, and she's sort of dismantling the so-called important things of society and showing how ridiculous they are and how little meaning the lives of society actually have. So this is a really interesting book. I wouldn't say it was like amazing. I did get kind of bored sometimes, and of course because the people in society are so ridiculous, you start getting annoyed at them, and you're like, they're so stupid, why are you like this, blah 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 blah. So yeah, it wasn't my favorite classic that I've read. This is my first Edith Wharton novel though, so I probably will try some of her other books, like The House of Murder comes to mind in the future. But yeah, this was good, and I'm glad I read it. I read it for the Around the Year challenge. You had the prompt was to read one of the books off the 101 books to read before you die list, and this was number 137 on that list. So yeah, I enjoyed this, but I wasn't blown away by it or anything. So that's all I've been reading lately. I'm in the middle of another book right now, and I have 7 more books that I'd like to read in October. I hope everybody else is having a great day and you're reading some great books, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!